Hi boys and girls, it's me, and we're back, and we're going to get to the 600 series low budget Resto today. What we're going to primarily be working on are a lot of plastic pieces, some other things that can be kind of cleaned and detailed and make this radio look as good as it's going to play. So let's get right to it. Okay, for starters, here's our logs and charts door that's actually opposite. Actually it's attached to the flip-up door with two clips, if you remember from part 8. And this guy, when you flip it down, you see it kind of wants to go with you, so to speak. But as you see here, I don't know how well I can get it. There's a little spring here and one here. So what I want to do is I want to basically dismantle this whole thing, and I'll show you how to do that. And we're going to make this, you're going to kind of clean it and polish it up and make this as nice as we could possibly get it. So let me show you what we need to do here. Okay, here's the back side of that piece, and what I'm going to do now is we're going to break this down from the back. First of all, there's two springs that actually put the spring tension on this door and holds it closed. There's one here, so I'm going to take my needle nose pliers and move that out of the way. Okay, I don't know how well it's coming through on the camera. There's actually a molded little slot in here to put that as well. There's also one over here. Oop, let me get this one. This one's a little bit harder because it's got to move over a little bit more of a distance. There we go. Now I have that apart. Okay, so basically now there's no spring tension at all on the door. You can see it just kind of is laying there. Okay, next thing to do is we're going to take, there's 4 screws. There's 2 on this side, okay, and 2 on this side, and the piece that's holding that in is like a little it's a hinge. It's just simply a flat metal piece, and it's got a twisted up basically a little hole in there, so that the shaft, there's actually a shaft that runs through this entire length, okay, and the spring goes around and it actually goes through either one of these. So now we're going to just take these 4 screws and get them out. There we go, and just like that, through the magic of video editing, as you can see, these screws have disappeared. Okay, so now what we could do is we could actually take the 2 ends here. I'm just taking my fingers, and I could actually pull that up. You see how it just kind of flopped out, just like that. So now this piece is free, and now we have the 2 little hinges on here, so they can be removed, like so. And I'm putting these in a little case here, so I don't lose any of my parts. Now we can slowly, here's what I'm going to do next is I'm going to pull this rod. See where I got my fingers on the left there? I'm going to pull this rod out, but you have to be careful, because I don't want the springs to go flying. So I'm just going to put my hand over this spring first, pull on it, because what's going to happen is there's a little bit of tension on that spring. Okay, and there it is. Alright, there's one spring. Now I'll pull this out the rest of the way. There we go. And here's the other spring. I'll put that in my tray with my other parts. So now I have this rod. I've got the actual reception book. Okay, I'm going to put the reception book off to the side because I don't need that right now. And then the last thing I'm going to do, here, let me just get these out of the way too, is I think I want to clean this guy up. But I don't want to polish it while it's in the bezel. It'll be easier to do it. Whoop! Cameras fall down. I'm just going to bend these tabs up carefully. I'm just going to pull them up a little bit with my fingernail, like so. I can use either needle nose pliers or a screwdriver or whatever to get the rest of the way here. Just move them till they're close to straight up. Here, let me get, I got a better pair here. Okay, these are a little bit heavier. There we go. The other ones were kind of too thin. Get this up a little bit more. Take your time. No hurry. There we go. And now we got our little Zenith logo out. Okay, and we'll put that in the tray with the rest of the screws. Okay, now we have this slop sync cam here. This is a Resto exclusive. I don't think there's anybody else on YouTube that's using a slop sync cam. So let's go start with my favorite cleaner, Simple Green. Spray it on here. Okay. And if the bezel has been in an environment where it's been exposed to cigarette smoke, Simple Green is probably a really good thing to use and a real good thing to clean with. Now with the black piece, we can let that sit as long as you want to. This, I believe, came from a smoke-free environment, so this is one of the reasons why this Resto is in really good shape, and you know, that's the kind of thing you want to find to start out with. So let it sit for about 15-20 seconds. I'm just going to start cleaning it up with this. Okay, next we have the logs and chart store with the Zenith logo on it. And like the black piece, the black surround, I'm going to use some more Simple Green on here, but now here's the difference. The Simple Green can't be left on this piece too long because any of the white, it'll clean that up, but you don't want to leave it on there too long because what will happen then is, and I don't want to use the brush over it because I don't want to remove any of that paint. So I'll spray the Simple Green on here. Just clean the top and sides a little bit, and then I'll immediately run water onto it so it doesn't remove the lettering. That was probably about 10 seconds. Well, now that they're clean, we can dry them off and now we can polish them. Okay, we're ready to start polishing things up here. I've got here notice number 2 and number 1. I'm going to use number 2 on here because it's got some scratches, light scratches and things like that on there. I'll polish it up with that and we'll chase it with number 1. And then I'll probably just use maybe some number 1 on the door. So let me get started. Okay, we got the logs and chart store pretty much done. I used a Q-tip, but I went in between the these little slits that are on here, and seem to work pretty good. So it's nice and polished. It's all the dirt is gone. Forgot to mention, if you get sometimes you get a radio with stickers on. I don't think this one had one on there, but if there's a sticker on your radio, sometimes these were used with airmen or people in the military, and they'd apply their stickers and things like that on there, or if you were a kid, and when you're a kid you had stickers put on it. So then you may have to get some Gooby Gone or WD-40 or whatever, and the best thing to do is to try to soak them and let them sit for a little while. Don't try to take them off right away, but let it soak real good. And do your best to try to get it off, because if you try to scrape it off, the surface will get all scratched up, and then it won't look so good. So anyway, there's a couple more things we need to do. What I want to do to kind of make this pop is I want to take this Zenith logo. Let me turn this a little bit. Take the Zenith logo and polish it up a little bit, and then when it's on the plastic piece, it's really going to pop and it's going to look really nice. So, polish of choice is Mother's. Going to put it on there a little bit. And I'll just work it on this paper towel I've got here. The rest from here is just all elbow grease. Just keep working it. And believe me, it's not going to happen right away. It's going to take a little while. And you get the tarnish off of there, and it'll actually develop a shine. And then it's going to look really nice. Okay, I've been Probably working on this thing for about 15 minutes, and that's about as good as I can get it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the slop sink. I'm just going to wash everything down with soap and water. I'm going to let it dry, and then just to help keep it shiny for a long time, I'm going to put a little clear lacquer on that, and I'll show you how to do that. So let me wash this up and dry it first. Okay, I've got this on a piece of cardboard, and I'm going to just take some clear lacquer here, and I'm just going to paint the outside of this with the clear lacquer. And I'm not going to do this on camera, I'm going to do this off camera, but that way it'll help protect the nice shiny finish on there. Okay, I've got the logs and chart stores. It's all nice and shiny now. It's on the bench. The brass Zenith logo is off to the side. I took it outside and I put a little clear lacquer on, so that's drying. So what I'll do is I'll put that on here last. In the interim, let's put everything back together. Let's flip this over. Okay, and this is basically how it looked like after we had taken off all the hardware. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put all the hardware back on, and we're just going to reverse basically the sequence that we did to get it apart. So what we need is, let's see, I need the rod. Okay, here's the rod here. We need the logs, the actual logs and charts, which would go on here like this. Okay. Now they varied from year to year, so this is an L600, and this is the correct one for this radio. Yours may look a little different, but the idea is that when you pull the door down, it's going to look like this when you pull it down. So the top of this booklet, make sure you have that in the right place, because you could flip it over here and have this wrong, and then someone's going to look at that and know it's on here backwards. So make sure you got this on right. Okay, now let me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the black piece and slide it up a little bit, and I'm going to take now this wire, and here, let me hopefully get the camera, get a good shot of this here, where these two lobes are, so to speak. I'm going to start running it through this hole, but before I get it through the hole all the way, I also want to put the spring on that we removed before. Okay. Now one end of the spring has a nice little flat spot on here, and the other one has the hook. The hook end's going to go over this. So I'm going to lay this on here, and hopefully the camera's picking this up okay. Alright, and now I'm going to run this wire through there, and now it's through the spring, and the spring is intact. We just have to put it on there. Now the wire's sticking out. We want to make sure we got that index so that it goes into the logs and charts booklet, which it is. Okay. And it's going to keep going through it. It's just kind of working its way down as I keep feeding it. Now we got it down to here, and now there's a hole over here, and I'll just get it started in the hole. Okay. And we got it started. It's in the hole, and it's sticking out a little bit here. Let me move the camera maybe so we can see that a little bit better. Okay, so now it's sticking out a little bit this way, and now I'm going to put the other spring in, and it's basically the same thing. Okay, so the flat end's got to be sticking this way, which is this the flat end. Hook end's got to go underneath the gray door, or if you're doing a leather radio, the beige door, or the brown door. Okay, so I got that laid in there. Wire is through. Okay, so now what you should have is something like this, with the wires coming out through both ends. Okay, the booklet is in place. It's hooked. It's on the right way. Your two springs. Next, we got the hinges. All right, so we got a hinge here, and get out the other hinge and put it here. Now notice too, the hinge could also be put on two ways. Okay, so what you want to have it is just the way I have it here, so that and when you run through the hole, it's up higher, like I have it here. Because if you put it this way, it's not going to fit on there right. Okay, so make sure that you have it in this direction here on both sides. Okay, now here's where it gets a little bit tricky. I'm going to pick this up. You want to kind of have the door open a little bit, and then the hinges will actually kind of fit in here. Okay, that side's in. Oh, I see what's going on. The wire's sticking out too far, so let me slide it back in a little bit. There we go. Now that one should go in. It has. All right. Oop. This one came out. There it goes. Okay. So now it should look like that. All right. Now, we could put our screws in. We got 2 on either side. And get them lined up with the plastic holes. And boys and girls, keep in mind too that what you're threading into is plastic. Okay. So now when you're going to tighten these screws in, what you want to do is just snug them up. Do not over tighten them, because then you will crack or break the plastic, and then you're going to have to find another one. Okay. And believe me, I've done enough of these to know when you're working with these plastic parts, especially like what I'm doing right here is here. I should do this one first. Let me, whoop, this was magnetic. So let me start it a little bit by hand. There we go. And just tighten it down until you feel it just snug. You see how it's just snug right there? Stop. Do not go any further. Whoop. Let me start this one a little bit. You want to keep that in mind for all the plastic parts. The brass parts are different because they're brass, they're metal. Plastic, you just tighten them down. Just tighten them down until they're just snug. Okay, just like that. Just snug. There we go. Now, we can flip it over. Last but not least, we got to put the springs back up here so that when the door opens up, it'll spring down. Because right now, the springs are not engaged. That's just flapping around. Okay, so let's take we'll take a needle nose. All you want to do is just pull the spring out a little bit, get it up over the plastic and into the little slot provided. You may have to slide this over a little bit like I did here, just like that. And as you can see, now the wire is in that little molded slot. Now we've got to do the same thing on this side. Get the those pliers, get the wire up and over, slide it in place, and that's good. Now the door should stay closed. All right, let me check and see if our little logo is dried yet or not. Okay. Alright, boys and girls, now we're back to the slop sig cam. And I've got the bezel, the front bezel from the radio here in the sink. Now we're going to approach this the same way we did the H500 Resto last year. What I'm going to do is I'm going to spray this guy down with simple green. I only want to leave it on here for maybe about 20 seconds or so, because if I leave it on too long, the white is going to wash out here. So we're just going to leave it long enough just to basically get some of the surface dirt off, and then we'll go over it with soap and water. So here we go. Time that out, okay. And I can see the simple green already starting to work. I can see those letters getting lighter as it is now. Okay. Oh, that's a wonderful thing. Let's sit. Okay, let's let it sit for about 10 more seconds. Then I'll just run some water over here, rinse this off. Okay, and through the magic of video editing, I didn't do anything. Look at that. Look how bright those letters are. And if you don't think that didn't look that bright when we got started, go back to the start of where this was just sitting in here before I sprayed it. Already it did a pretty good job. So now what we can do is take a sponge. We'll put some, I got a little hand soap here. It's mild. Just kind of like an antibacterial hand soap. And just lightly start washing the dirt off here. Okay. You definitely want to avoid using anything abrasive because, especially on the face, it'll scratch. I even put I put a wipe on the side of this so when I laid it down, nothing sharp would get at the back of this here. You definitely really don't even want to use it on here because if you leave the simple green on here in the back for a minute, it'll take this lettering right off. So we don't want to do that. Okay, I got the bezel all polished up now, and it's ready to go back on the rail. Also, I took all the band switches and I cleaned them also in the slop sink using simple green. Dried them off and then just used a little Novus #1 on it. Wiped them down, buffed them, and then put them back in the bezel. It looks really nice now, so that's ready to go back on the radio. Now off camera, and I have Berwin here as a hand model to show you. Well, I guess I'm not paying him enough, he decided to leave. But I did the wave magnet. Alright, this is basically your broadcast band antenna. What I did was I took this part off, and here, let me flip it over so you could actually read the Zenith wave magnet. It's on there in like neon yellow green color. 4 screws. I took the 4 screws off, and then this actually separates. Same thing. Took the top piece, put it in the slop sink, and went over with simple green. And then I just went over with the toothbrush, especially in here, because this is the factory painting and I don't want to repaint the gold. Now this is only on the early production L600 radios like I have here. Most of the other 600 radios, this will basically just have the words wave magnet in white, and the rest of this will be black. So that takes a little more time to do, so I kind of got lucky with this. So this is done and ready to go back on the radio. And also off camera, I cleaned and polished this. This is the line cord feed bezel, so to speak, which goes on the side of the radio. So that's ready to go back on the radio. And I also polished up the handle. Now this is an L600 handle. If you have a, let's see, I think the R did, I think the rest of the models did, had a hole on top of the handle on one side. And that was because the wave magnet, here let me go grab the wave magnet again. Right where it had the word, let me flip it over so you don't have to stand on your head. There was a pin coming out of this area, a metal pin, that would fit in a hole in the handle so you could rotate the wave magnet while it was on the radio. Well, this radio, the L600s didn't have that. So this is polished up and ready to go. And now all I have to do is basically clean and buff out the cabinet. Okay, now we got our plastic parts out of the way. Now we just have to, we've already cleaned the case. Now we just have to apply some polish and buff it out. And what I usually use is I prefer the Kiwi black polish. This one is brand new. I have one here that was opened. Let me use that one up first. And what I'll do is I'll just take some, put it on a toothbrush, just kind of work it into the black stag, like I'm doing here. It's just like you're polishing your shoes. You have a nice pair of old school dress shoes. Nowadays, dress shoes are made from patent leather and stuff. Just write this on there, work it in, and then I'm going to take my brush and just start working it into the stag, just like you see here. Now, rather than lull you all into sleep watching me do this, through the magic of video editing, I'm probably going to spend the next hour and a half, 2 hours doing this. So let me pick it up where I'm close to being done. Okay, well, it's now 2.5 hours later, and the entire case has been, basically, the boot polish has been applied, It's been buffed to a pretty nice high finish. I don't think that the camera is really doing this any justice. You will notice though that the latch in the front is missing. And I sort of had a change of heart. You know, the case, as I was buffing it out, started to look really nice. Now this case is far from perfect. There's some little holes and stuff in, little tears I'm going to glue up. There was a tear here that I already glued back up. But I thought to myself, you know, this thing would really pop if I stripped down the brass and relacquered it. So that's what I did. I changed my mind and decided to do that. So that's why it's not on there now. So I think that's going to be all for today, for this part. And the next part will be the final assembly. We're going to put this guy back together and plug it in and turn it on. So until then, bye.